All right. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm great, Douglas, and yourself?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm just thinking right now, you remind me of one of the characters from Saturday Night Live when she did the NPR spoof.
Oh, yes, I know who you're talking about.
What was
Yeah.
her name? Anna Gasteyer?
Uh-huh. Yep. I've heard that once in a while. I hear Cher much more often, but see, I've dyed my hair blonde now, so I used to have really long hair, and I heard people mistook me for Cher all the time when I was younger.
Well, Cher's not exactly a spring chicken anymore.
That's true. That's true.
She's got to be, how old is Cher? She's got to be in her 70s by now, right?
I would think,
Yeah.
because I know where I'm at, so I'm gonna say yeah. She's probably
Well, I was a little kid when the Sonny and Cher show was on, and she was already, I would say, well into her 20s when that was on. So
yes,
she's got to be
yes,
in her
same,
70s.
same,
Okay.
yes.
So you are what do we call you? A fashion designer or a fashion magazine owner? What, all of the above?
Kind of all of the above. That's kind of how I ended up with. Sometimes people will refer to me as the mogul or the guru, fashion mogul or guru, because I kind of do everything. My degree is in commercial photography, and that's my first passion, editorial fashion. But I also am a designer. I sew couture pieces, generally a little bit more avant garde for editorial shoots and runway. I also am the editor of HauteOhio magazine, which I founded about 5.5 years ago. I run Ohio Fashion Week. I manage models. I mean, it just goes on. So I just launched a podcast. I'm writing a book. So yeah, I'm kind of all of those.
And you sleep when? When do you sleep?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It sounds a lot more labor intensive, I think, than it actually is because it's fun. Like it's not work to me.
Well, that's the trick. You don't
Mm-hmm.
mind spending 16 hours a day doing it if if you love what it
Exactly.
is that you do. And I've
Right.
found that a lot of people who are very motivated uh, entrepreneurial types, they tend to function quite well on about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. They don't need to
That's
lounge
not
in
true for
bed.
me. I am definitely eight
Oh,
hours,
you're an
but
8 hour?
I
Okay.
can really work when I'm awake. So yeah. But again, I love it. I'm providing opportunities for people that I didn't have when I was young. So it's important to me. And I'm promoting 100% inclusion in the fashion industry, which is also very important to me. So not only am I having fun and enjoying what I'm good at, but I'm providing opportunities for others. So it's kind of like my way of giving back, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the inclusion. Now, when
Hmm.
people use that term inclusion, they generally are referring to different ethnicities of people,
Hmm.
uh, sexual orientations. However, I think in
Hmm.
fashion that has not particularly been an issue. I think
Not so much,
not so
no.
much.
But there are definitely other barriers, age, height, weight, size, obviously, ethnicity, abilities. I do promote models with disabilities and, all ages, heights, weights, genders.
That's
There's beauty in everyone. So,
right. That's what I was going to bring up. Is that I would have suspected that the size of the models would have been something that was very exclusion,
yes. Uh-huh.
particularly people who might be overweight, who might not be
Hmm.
the proper shape. There's sort of the classic female model of being very
Hmm.
skinny, almost
Yes.
anorexic looking.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you were a curvy or full figured woman, large, what's the polite way to say that? Large chested.
Well endowed.
Well, and, well, that could be for
Is that
men
one
too, but
word?
that's not as nice. Yeah.
Buxom? I'm not sure.
Buxom. That's an old word. I'll use that one. Buxom. Full figured, I think
Yes,
we
full
use
figured.
that.
That's probably the best to cover all angles there.
Yeah. So those type of women typically were not included in high fashion. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Historically, that's the truth. Yes. I do think that it's beginning to change. They are starting to show and sign more plus size models. But even what is considered plus size now in the key markets is so not plus size in real life. So, plus size in real life is 14, 18, well, probably not 14, but like 18, 20, somewhere in that range, but they show size 8 as plus size. So it's making strides, but it's got a long way to go. That's where we come in.
Oh, that's great. What about
Hmm.
disabled people? Is there a
Hmm.
fashion outlet for
Hmm.
them? For people who might be in
Absolutely.
wheelchairs or
I have opportunities for everyone, obviously. And if you're wanting to walk a runway, or if you're wanting to be in a photo shoot, just drop me a line, because we're here to provide those opportunities for you. Whether you're just thinking about doing it, or whether you're a seasoned signed model and you are well into the industry. Absolutely, all genders, all sizes, all abilities. None of that is of any concern to me. My only concern is that you are serious about participating. You're not going to come and be silly on set and then not give us what we need. So, because I can teach you how to be a model, you don't have to worry about that part.
so what's the most important thing that someone needs to be a good model? Since you said you could teach it, what is it? Is it the self-confidence?
Well, confidence is always helpful, obviously, but I think attitude is the most important thing. You have to be willing to be teachable, and do what you're told. I mean, I can turn you into a model, to tell you how to pose, tell you how to rock that runway, but if you're not listening to me or hearing me, then I can't then I can't make you a model. So I think attitude, presentness, and confidence are the things that are really required. Your physical beauty is just your physical beauty. We are looking for inner beauty to shine and to showcase.
Physical beauty is so subjective, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
And I don't know who decides, what this month the flavor of the month is going to be, because if you look through historically and go back to the
Mhm.
Renaissance period, these very large, overweight women were considered the beautiful women of those
Yes.
days. If you were too
Hmm.
skinny, they didn't take you because they thought you were malnourished. The idea that you
Hmm.
were well fed and lived a good life and ate a lot of food, that was beautiful in their
Hmm.
society.
Yes. Agreed. That's why many of the sculptures and old paintings from, Renaissance era, they're all highlighting a plus size woman. That was definitely what they considered beautiful at the time as a society. That is not the case now, obviously, in the main industries, but we're trying to change that. And there's, really, there's beauty in everyone. And it doesn't matter if you're plus size or curvy or skinny or short or petite or tall. There's beauty in everybody. So yeah, and I manage models in the whole scope. Um, I'd like to say that I seek out diversity because I want to showcase the beauty within people, but I don't seek it out in the manner of exploitation. I seek it out in the manner of showing the beauty in everyone. So I actually manage models in many walks of life, in petite and males, females, all ages, LGBTQ, Down syndrome. Um, I mean, you name it, I probably manage it, all colors. So, yeah, it's important. It's important for fashion to be for everyone, because it is for everyone. I mean, everybody wears it. Even if you choose not to go wear clothes, you're still choosing fashion.
Now, is your magazine primarily catering to women's fashions, or do you have men in there as well?
We definitely have men, just by ratio of the industry, there's definitely a lopsidedness to the woman's side. But we do have men in there. We try to do it every single issue. But again, it's not always possible. It comes down to whether we have male models who submit to us. And we usually try to showcase a minor, like a child, or, I try really hard to showcase diversity in each one of my issues.
Well, the reason I brought up men's fashions is because I have personally have always loved the fashions for men in two sort of time periods in history. I do not like the one that we have right now. Um, and I didn't particularly like and I'm just referring to suits because
Yes.
that's, I mean, for years that's all I wore when I worked. But the 1940s and the 1950s for
Hmm.
men's suits, and then also right around the Edwardian period at the turn of the century, those sort
Hmm.
of high detachable collars and the long coats and top hats and ascots. I mean, I think men looked really handsome in those days.
They did. Very sharp and put together.
Yeah,
Hmm.
even though those were incredibly uncomfortable, because I've tried one before. I don't know what they make those collars out of. They're almost like plastic,
Yeah.
and they
I'm
are
not
really.
I'm not sure if they use the collar stays or if they used heavy starch, back in the real days. I'm not sure, but nowadays we use heavy starch and collar stays to help hold just the edges up. So
Okay, because the ones that actually detached, they felt like, to me, they felt like plastic, these vintage ones.
yeah, and they
And
would spring open.
yeah, and they would spring open and you would had to, you
Yeah.
literally, well, in those
Uh-huh.
days, the
Yeah.
well-to-do gentleman had an actual box that the
Yeah.
collars would go into. It's like this round kind of box, right?
Mm,
It looked like a
yes.
cake box,
Yeah.
essentially.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And, they were miserable in the heat, but if it was, 40 or 50 degrees outside, it was perfect for that kind of
Mm-hmm.
clothes. But the 1940s and 50s, the suits, and now maybe this is a technical question, but it seems to me that the men's trousers in that time period, they wore them higher up. Was that the way they wore them? Like they measured around the belly button rather
Yes,
than
around
your
the
hip
waist.
bones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. That was definitely a higher waisted time frame for pretty much everyone. Even a lot of the women were wearing more of an empire waist at the time, which is just below the bust. Um, but definitely, as the '60s rolled in, everything got really low,
Everything
and we
drooped.
went down to the hipsters and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then it never really came completely back up again until the '80s. The '80s had very high waisted as well, if you recall that.
Yeah, I
Um,
do. Those sort of baggy trousers, pleated front
hmm.
trousers, those
Yes.
came back in the 80s for a bit with a
Uh-huh.
lot of big hair.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do remember. I actually wore a few of those because I like that style. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned about the 60s because the hip huggers of the late 60s and
Yes.
70s, I mean, those drooped so low that, people's bottom cracks were showing in many
Mm.
instances and they got real low.
They were either really low on top or really short on the bottom. Yeah, so they were interesting. Yeah. Mm.
But I don't like the skinny suits for men now. I can't wear them because I'm a big guy and I have big legs and they just don't look right. They
Hmm.
don't look right on me at
I
all.
love I love the uniqueness of the skinny suit, but I do understand that it's definitely a particular body type that can wear them and wear them well. I mean, I feel like anyone can wear them. It's just, do you feel comfortable in it? Um, but I think what's really interesting about what's happening is that just recently and very definitely currently, there's more fashion for men than there have been, really. More options, more casual or more dressy, different types of styles of suits. Is it, double breasted is just as accepted as, the European styles. And so, I mean, I think you guys have a lot more option now, which is much more attuned to the women have unlimited options. So I've always felt like men kind of got the short end of the stick because if they were into fashion, there was two options. There was jeans or there was, the suit, the banker suit. So I'm happy to see that there are options now for you at least.
Well, and now we can kind of mix and match. I mean, there's a lot of people who wear a suit jacket with a t-shirt and jeans, and that's
Mhm.
a perfectly fine look for
Mhm.
smart casual, I think it's called.
Yes.
Which,
Very nice.
yeah, which you would never have done in the 1950s. That would not have been
No.
an option.
That was a very I think it was up until the 60s, basically, that everything was very formal, I think is the best way to say it. I mean, you didn't walk out of the house unless you were completely put together, whether you were male or female. And I think that that was true all the way up until about the 60s. And then kind of everything broke free in spirit.
True. Well, we had a major social revolution in the 60s
Right.
with people
Right. And
wearing
now
crazy
walking out of the
psychedelic,
house put together is a rarity.
all the crazy psychedelic clothes that came out in the 60s. And
Yeah.
even
And I love the style.
oh,
I
yeah.
actually do a lot of like couture pieces that are inspired or, harken back to the 60s and the 70s. I really do love the interest in the clothing from that era. It's just definitely not as formal as like, the 50s or the 30s. So,
Well, even the pink and black jacket on your model behind you, I mean, that's very 60s. It almost looks like paisley. There was a funny thing you mentioned, and then we got to kind of wrap this up, about people went in those days, they were put together when they went out. There was a funny episode I just watched a couple of days ago of the old I Love Lucy show.
oh, yeah.
And it was one where they had to go on the subway for some reason. And they had just finished painting in the apartment. She says, well, there's no way I'm going to go on the subway wearing blue jeans. So she changed and put on a dress and white gloves and a hat and a smart bag. And I just thought, wow, times have changed.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Do you have a website for your magazine or a personal website you want to give out?
Yes, all my endeavors can be found on HauteOhio.com, HauteOhio.com. That's going to be for anyone who's interested in purchasing or subscribing to the magazine. It's going to be people who want to be contributors, people who want to participate, Ohio Fashion Week if you want to sponsor, or the podcast if you want to sponsor. Everything is going to be there, and links to all of our social medias will be there too.
Well, Jackie, thanks so much for coming on, and this was a fun conversation. Best of luck with all of your